All right, good afternoon or good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I my thing kind of aired, and I wasn't able to send it out to everybody. but we're gonna have a short space today. I wanted to get into something that I overheard on one of Tariq's spaces. I heard Brother Tariq talking about how John Lake Wazamo was talking about the wrong group of people built the railroads, and I wanted to clear that up. I couldn't let it go. So we're gonna clear this up right quick and get on our merry way. Uh, just giving a minute for more people to climb up in here, and I'm gonna get back to you in a minute. I'll be right back. Ugh. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm back. We got a couple quick questions. Who really built that railroad? You see, the railroad is very important to the American economy. Um, it is the American economy. Hold on one second. Let me see. We're trying to discover how it was built, why was it built, and who built it. Wani, any takers? Who built that railroad? You know.
Us, we did it all alone, and I'll explain why. First of all, we were enslaved by the railroad, and no one else was. Everybody else willingly came over and worked for low wages in whatever they were doing. So, number one, we were enslaved. Number two, we invented things to make the railroad work, like all those real McCoy inventions. So that's number two. Number three, we literally created music genres on the railroad. Okay. Taught some people how to play, how to pick, how to perform country music. And they went off into the world and literally said that they learned from black guys on the railroad, and they became music stars or their ancestors. So that's three things we did on the railroad. And the fourth thing we did on the railroad was that we built over 3,000 miles of track. Okay, we built entire railroads and cars, complete railroads, while some other people, Chinese, are associated with building 700 miles of track on the West Coast, but they did not do it alone. They had the help of any other kind of immigrant that was over here. So they didn't even build seven. I'm being generous. Um, it's kind of hard with the records to know how many miles, but it's way under 700. But we can't tell how much they built because there were more Irish people out there and others working on it. So we built the railroads. And like I said, four huge aspects: a development of music, which is what we do every time we go somewhere, we create a music genre. We went to the military and we created the song Sound Off, okay, like the main song for them to march to. We're very busy people. Any questions?
Oh yeah. To add on to what Wani just said about inventions, let me hit you with a couple inventions y'all probably didn't know about. I didn't know about until I did my reading. According to Dr. Claude Anderson, in the late 1800s, blacks invented and filed for patents on a number of transportation related devices. As examples, in 1898, A.J. Beard invented a train car coupler. So man, you know that little thing on the train, you get on a train that keeps the cars together? Invented by a black man. Didn't know that. In 1888, Brother A.B. Blackburn invented a railway signal. The little sign that tell you that the train coming, that was invented by a black man. Didn't know that. Okay, according to Dr. Anderson, quote, in 1874, Brown and Latimer, I think that's Lewis
Hmm.
Latimer, invented a water closet for railway cars. So if you ever been on the train on your way to somewhere and you had to use a bathroom on a train, invented by two black men. I'm not done. Quote, in 1897, R.A. Butler invented a train alarm. Am I done? Nope.
Nope.
In 1891, George Tolliver invented a propeller for vessels. But we stupid though, right?
Yeah.
So, so Wani said something real deep. She said, uh, I don't know if y'all caught it, but she said we were enslaved working on the railroads. What Wani didn't say is we were enslaved by the motherfucking railroad
Hmm.
company. Dr. Claude Anderson said on page 145 of White Black Labor, White Wealth, that's a must
Hmm.
get. He says, quote, many railroad lines actually purchased slaves as property and business equipment. Y'all, I knew we had a lot of motherfucking titles, but I never knew that we had a title of business equipment. Dr. Anderson says railroads use slaves to do the heavy loading, maintain tracks, and railroad cars. Other times, slaves were purchased on speculation for capital gains, and we don't need reparations. Get the
Oh,
fuck
please,
out of
what?
And
here.
watch some Latinos come and try to place themselves at those railroads as if they built it. We need to make a documentary about this.
Terrific.
Again, why
I'm
don't I
down.
just turn over my whole book and let Tariq make a documentary about that? Because it just gets rid of
Yeah,
these people. It removes them from these lies that they keep telling, and we have total proof of it. I mean, it's like
Hmm.
it's a no-brainer. They
Exactly.
didn't build the railroad.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. Nope. No, they did not build the railroads. Actually, excuse me to interject. Actually, we had the dancing to the Gandhi dancing, and correct me if I'm wrong. We had to straighten tracks, and we all had to be in unison with each other in order to straighten these tracks up. And we had strong backs, in which no other male had the back that a foundational Black American had. Excuse me, to straighten these tracks out. Um, uh, you
Can
know,
you say that again? They had to do it in unison.
yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Oh,
Why?
well, then white people can't do that. These
yeah, they
offering
can't
them
It
do that.
was
That's just like
motherfuckers.
how we are with
because
These
we
offering them
dance, we
awkward ass
sing.
motherfuckers couldn't.
they
Never mind.
and also not only did they not have the rhythm, their genes are recessive. Their bones are not dense as ours are.
Their
As
pineal glands are calcified. They can't
calcified.
do. Yeah,
Not only that, the first greasing system that, and this is going back to the main topic of who built the railroads. Much of these companies needed this greasing system in order to grease the bearings. Look, I came from actually a railroad background, originally, and just to give a little history about myself. Originally, I was a welder. I went to Job Corp to get my training. Um, and they said, you know what, Richard, what do you want to do? Do you want to go back to the hood of the DMV? You want to go back to the hood of Capitol Heights, Maryland? I said, no. You know what? Okay, Richard, we're going to send you to Transportation Communication Union. That's where I discerned how to be a carman. The position was called the carman, to maintain the railroads. Um, so, with that being said, going back to the main host's point, yes, we are the character of the people of the railroads. We built the railroads. It wasn't Asians. It wasn't Italians. Even if it was the Italians, they got paid. We didn't get paid. So going back to reparations, yes, we are very much owed. And I land my plane.
We have an expert in the room. I
Outstanding.
love it.
I love it.
I feel so good to be a foundational Black American. Y'all came with receipts today. I just feel so proud to be who I am.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, the receipts don't end. Dr. Anderson said railroad builders exploited for their preferential status with the government by upgrading their free land for better lands. So basically, the railroad companies got free land from the government and upgraded. Say, hey, government, I'm gonna give you this land if you give me that land. And they got land that had shit to do with railroads. They got it just to speculate on it, and you know what I'm saying, and sold it so people could make houses out of it. Dr. Anderson said, for example, before the 1900s, Congress enacted a law that permitted a railroad to exchange property it owned on an Indian reservation for federal land outside the reservation. Unowned under this provision, excuse me, for instance, railroads exchanged millions of acres of worthless or low valued land for land located in fertile valleys of Washington, Oregon, Idaho, or Montana. These exchanges had nothing to do with the building of railroad lines, but you can't give me land to build my house on. Come on now. The United States is built off the railroad system, ladies and gentlemen. Um, Goods have to be shipped. Dr. Anderson also educated us on the fact it kind of puckers my mouth and gets me a little pissed off. But Dr. Anderson said, basically, I'm paraphrasing him, the enslaved blacks made so many goods that they needed a way to sell the goods. So we making all these goods, it's cotton and et cetera, et cetera. So we need to sell it to foreign lands, but we need a way to transport it to foreign lands. So then you turn around and make that same enslaved black make the transportation line to sell the goods that we made for them for free. Give me my fucking reparations yesterday. Twizzle.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Happy Taco Tuesday. You know what I mean? I ain't eating no tacos, but
Right.
I'm having me some tequila right now. Hey, Nikki, Sister
Hey.
Wani. Hi. What's
Hello.
up, everybody? But hey, you said we got receipts. I got a receipts, and I'm gonna speak up on the chain game because I used to do my studies and research with that. Because my dad, he was from Arkansas, and he used to tell me about that. But this is our receipt right here, y'all. Hold on. You hear this? This Sam Cooke.
Oh.
Gang. That's the sound of the men working on the chain gang.
See how that's inside of us and we don't even remember
You
it?
know what I'm saying? That's our receipt.
It's
You
so
know,
inside of
Bling
us.
and boom,
It's
you're already back
and
there.
it's like what y'all was saying on how
it's
with the chain gangs on how they had the rhythm, they would have the song, they would have a little rhythm, they would have a little rhythm to go to where they all moved in unison. You know what I'm saying? And that's the blessing of us being black because only us we have that rhythm. That's why they always call us soul. But when I was doing my research on the chain gang, professor, the railroad companies didn't buy the slaves. They took over. That was slave labor. They imprisoned a lot of black men and made them work on them. Made them work on them railroads, and that was the first chain gangs. You know what I'm saying? A lot of them black men were free, but yet they got in prison over some fake, false, fraudulent claim, and they was put
Oh,
on them
yeah,
change
that
gangs.
too.
You know what I'm saying? And the railroad companies didn't buy them; they was leased out to them, man. And it got to the point to where the railroad companies have so much power and influence to where they own states and they own part of the government, so therefore they own that. You know what I'm saying? And it was fucked up.
it's it, Twizzle. It's
Yeah,
worse
I
than
know
that.
it's
So
way
you're
worse
right.
than that. Go ahead.
Initially they were leased out to the railroad companies, but when the railroad companies made enough money, enough bank, they bought slaves to put on the stock
Yeah,
exchange.
yeah.
You know
And
what I'm
they was
saying?
finished with
So
them.
both
But check
and
this out. Have you ever seen that documentary, The Men Who Built America? They talk about that. They talk
I
about
missed
on
it.
how the Vanderbilts were the ones who wanted to connect the east to the west, so they started building those railroad lines, and they got the steel from William Carnegie, and they got the finances from J.P. Morgan, and it was the black ones who laid those tracks that connected the west. The men, it's a series on I think the History Channel. It's called The Men Who Built of America.
That's true. J.P.
Yes,
Morgan was
yes, and the
involved. Yes.
Vanderbilts was the ones who financed to put the laborers out there for them to lay the tracks down. You know, it was Vanderbilt Construction with
Wow.
JP with Carnegie Steel and JP Morgan money. You know what I'm saying? With black labor that built that connected the West because that was their main goal at the time to connect the West because the West was still uncharted territory. You know what I'm saying? So that was their goal to connect the West to build roads and highways. And the first thing was with the railroads, and they also needed the Buffalo Soldiers to go through there to clear out those lands so they could build those railroads through. Remember that movie Posse when they talked about that? And they talked about, oh, they're building the railroads through here. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of that shit that has nothing to do with it, and that's a lot of our history. But not only that, as I said, that I was telling somebody else, as us Black Americans, we need to start taking trips and pilgrimage to our Black ancestral sites to pay homage because it was a lot of Black men that died on those tracks, man. You know, we need to go there and just lay flowers and wreaths and just a remembrance to our ancestors who helped pave the way and who was the ones who helped guide it and open up the West and proverbial the ones who won and conquered the West. You know, I want to land my plane there, y'all. But shout out to the room shops, Professor, Darling Nikki, and Sister Wani, and everybody. I just want to contribute, y'all.
With all due respect, that's a different Nikki. With all due
I'm
respect to
sorry. I'm
her,
sorry.
whoever
I'm
she
sorry,
is,
Nikki. You know,
I'm yeah,
Nikki the
yeah, I'm Nikki the
God. I know
guy.
Nikki
Just
the
so
God.
all
I'm
right,
sorry. No, I know this is.
it's
I
okay,
committed
hon.
the ultimate sin, called the wrong woman the wrong name, throw gasoline on me, and
No,
light a
that's
match.
okay. No,
It's all
all
good.
love to her and whoever else has that name. No,
Yes, but Nikki the God, the one and only. Shout out to everybody, y'all. So I done fucked up. Let me drop my mic.
Check this out. According to Dr. Claude Anderson, quote, the main purpose for building the railroad system across the United States of America was to move the slave produced goods to domestic markets and to seaports for shipment to foreign markets.
Correct.
That's fucked up.
Correct. We
It's not,
built
it's,
agricultural gold. We are the only reason that we have a city. If we didn't build agricultural gold, we wouldn't have any ports because there would be nothing to export or any trains to take it to the port. Okay. And then we justified the cities. People had to live in cities because of all this activity on the trains and all this agriculture we had to get out. That created more jobs, which justified the cities. So we're the reason the superpower exists. And if we weren't here, this would be a big forested type of open field that wasn't developed. It had to be developed, and we did do that. We created all the national parks. The Buffalo Soldiers cleared roads. I mean, I want me to read everything they did. They did a lot. They had to damn near tame bears to get through there. They had to fight Native Americans, and they had to do a lot of things just to get west. There would be no Hollywood, no West Coast, no Midwest. Everything would just be hostile. You try to go west, you get mugged, you get highway robbery. They had to protect the stagecoaches. You couldn't get any mail. We beat those that Midwest and that West down to make it livable.
Yes,
Shout
ma'am.
out to the Buffalo Soldiers. And that's
Of
somebody
course.
we need to pay a major tribute to. Those are the real American heroes, our Buffalo Soldiers. Shout out to them.
Not only did we had to do what Wani Spot said, we also had to clear the brush. We also had to clear the wilderness. You know, you got to understand, America was, and I'm going to talk about particularly in the DC area, it was most definitely a swamp. It was very hard to survey this area. So you know what? You had people such as Benjamin Banneker, who studied astronomy, who studied the planet. I'm sorry, the stars and how they aligned, and of course, he was the inventor of the clock. Um, you had Europeans that couldn't even do it. You had people like what is his name? Um, what is his name, people? Someone help me out. What is his name? He was a French guy who retired and said, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going back home because I can't do it. So they try to say that, Benjamin Banneker. Benjamin Banneker remembered the plans. No, I think he was the orator of the architectural design of Washington D.C. Not just because he remembered it. And of course, he had a memory that was photogenic, if I'm saying it correctly. Um, photographic. There you
photographic.
go. There you go. There you go. But I don't think I don't think it was just photographic. I think he actually came up with the plans. Why did what is his name? What the hell is his name? Isaac something. No, not Isaac. Anyway,
Isaac Newton.
no, no, not Isaac Newton. His name was he had do 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 um what the hell was his name? It was a French name, and he said, "Fuck it, I retire, I quit. I'm going back to France. I'm taking my dusty, musty, rusty ass back to France because um, I can't get it straight." So
Is that the quote directly?
I'm sorry, I don't have the quote directly, and if I had the book in my
He didn't say musty dusty ass. Is that what you're telling me?
hand, no, no, ma'am.
But hey, can I
No,
touch
that
on what
wasn't
he's
part.
talking about? Because me and Professor were just talking about this the other day. Benjamin Banneker was a descendant from the Dugon tribe. And you know,
Mm-hmm.
the Dugon tribe had a familiarity with the stars. That's how come Benjamin
That's
Banneker
right.
was able
Mm-hmm.
to design Washington, D.C. and align
Mm-hmm.
it with the stars in the heavens.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So
Teaching
what you're
me,
saying is correct, brother. What you're saying is you're
preach.
100% correct. Each
Yes,
one
sir.
teach one.
Yes, sir. I just couldn't pinpoint the European that quit on the job. Yes,
It'll
sir.
come to
Yes,
you. It's
sir.
all good.
Appreciate y'all. Um,
Yeah. Scholarship is like that. I be forgetting shit all the time, man. Check this out. Dr. Claude Anderson says, "quote Centuries. Hold on, let me say that shit again. Centuries of sales of slave-produced cotton, tobacco, rice, and indigo had built the Southern economy and sustained the Northern business upon the which the American domestic and foreign trade were based. We built this city. We built this fucking country." That's what Claude Anderson just said. Everything is based upon centuries of our slave-produced cotton, tobacco, rice, and indigo. God dang. We built this motherfucker. Those two sentences prove that this country, all this wealth and GDP, that's us, baby. And I want a dividend. It's time for a dividend. Um, yeah, Dr. Anderson says northern businesses upon which the America's domestic and foreign trade were based in use of blacks in America. Historian Dan Lacey discussed how black labor subsidized the development and westward expansion of the railroads. That's what Wani just said earlier. Now, this pisses me off. Our blood, sweat, and tears subsidized the Department of Transportation, but I can't get a fucking subsidized loan to buy a house. How does that work? What is this about, ladies and gentlemen? The shiploads of cotton poured into the docks of Liverpool, England, financed the factories and railroads of the United States and the vast settlement of the American West. In the economic life of the 17th century America, with black labor, cotton was king and caused the nation to prosper and expand. That one paragraph is our claim to reparations. Just one paragraph. That's all we need. We are the foundation upon which this country is been built. We are the deposit. We're the start. I'm walking startup capital, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Anderson says, "quote To facilitate the shipment and sale of these goods and to support the cotton economy, government did everything possible to persuade the railroads and their stockholders to build lines across the country. Just between the years of 1850 and 1871, Congress gave railroad sections of land." Extending 6 miles on each side of the railroad tracks across the nation and totaling more land area than the entire state of Texas. Congress need to go ahead and give us some land so we can build our foundational Black American reservation. I digress.
Pretty much everything has been stolen from us: our music, our inventions, and our right to claim with the things that we built. And just by understanding what went on at that time, like where we lived, what songs were invented, and just how we dressed, what we ate. We have to keep track of everything because it's war. People, they're just stealing everything from us, and we just have to make sure that we have the receipts so that we can prove that it's ours. But we shouldn't have to do that, but we do.
exactly.
But go ahead, Midwest, or was it B1?
Oh,
Hey, it doesn't matter who
It
goes
was it
first.
was Midwest first.
Okay, okay, okay. Everyone hear me? Because last time I was kind of weird with this. and I'm in my car.
You in the
Yeah, this we
matrix.
can hear you.
You going in
Okay,
and out
great.
though, but go ahead.
Okay, well, okay, just let me know. I'm sorry, excuse that. So, I guess Wani and the professor, I want to talk to you all like personally, but I've been working on a graphic novel for years, and you all touched on transportation and movement of goods. There's been something called Sonora Aero Club, and they're like a Germany didn't always exist, as you all know. I guess it was I forget the Prussia, and they had an organization that was allegedly having airships moving to and from parts of the country, moving products, right? And so I'm looking like for a while I've been studying. It's been similar to the railroads, and the organization was called NIMSA. This FBI agent I talked to, he's a former FBI agent. He said that it translated into High Pursuit Flying Group, and it seems like what they were trying to pursue were escaped slaves. So that's kind of what I figured out. And you all kept talking about how everything with the railroad and transportation and groups of people, even the 49ers, and the 49ers of gold, and how we eventually, like Tariq talks about, how we had a part in flight with that guy out of Louisiana. I forget his name, Charles Gray or something. And I'm just saying, all this transportation is all related.
Correct.
It wasn't just the railroad; it was the shipping and the air.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, everything is built off of us. We're the we are the
Hmm.
denominator of this
Yes,
equation,
sir.
ladies and gentlemen.
And also, I want to harp on what you were saying, Professor A, about the cotton industry and how that was very much paramount to the wealth, the building of the wealth of this nation that everybody wants to flee to and flock to. Um, look, look, this is how I put it. We are very, 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 very exceptional people. We are very powerful people. Foundational Black Americans. Our ancestors picked cotton and they had to fill a bag, 100-pound bag. Now, let me ask you this question, my people in this section. Look, tell me how much 100-pound bag would fill of cotton, of balls, BOLLS, not BALLS. Tell me the number. Tell me the number. Someone, give me a number.
I mean, I'm not even
About
thinking. It
about
would feel.
20,000.
There you go.
Yeah, it
There
would
you
feel
go.
more than a
There you
hundred.
Another
go.
thing,
There you
think
But
of
go.
the time. Think about the
Hmm.
time to feel that. You
Exactly.
know what I'm saying?
Exactly. And that's my whole point. It took actually 7,000 balls of cotton to fill this goddamn 100-pound bag. And then the stress of them, the frustration, anxiety of them have to wake up the next day to do it again. That's why I say any problem that we go through, and this is just just a digression a little bit. Look, the trials, the tribulations, the problem is we're going to always be thrown hardships, as Tariq Nasheed say, as he teaches us this stuff. Um, Look, we can go through anything. That's why we're still here. That's why the white supremacists is like, you know what? These we didn't finish the job. We need to do something to wipe these people out, and but we need to do it discreetly. We need to do it deceptively, whereas they don't understand that they're being wiped out. So let's give them abortion. Let's keep them being on the treadmill of voting for Democrats, and not even just Democrats, Republicans as well. We vote for the couch. Obviously, we all on code. The code is the leader. We need to understand that we can do anything we put our mind to, as long as you have the confidence. And once you do go through these problems, look, it's going to build your character. It's going to build your self awareness. It's going to build all these type of things. Where it's going to make you invincible. It's going to make you. It's going to make you. It's going to make you the best. Because our ancestors were the best. They picked cotton. They picked not just cotton. It was they built the railroads. We built the bridges. We were architects. We got over 50,000 patents of inventions. Look, y'all, we are here. We are here, and we're here to stay because this is our land, and we're going to make it known. And it's not going to be no Plecker. It's not going to be no Naomi Drake to tell us, oh, you're Negroes, and we're gonna distinguish you from your indigenous status. No, we are who we are, and this is our nation. We built it. This is it. And you immigrants that come here, you better respect it. You white people that are guilty, who have this guilty narcissistic attitude towards just being practicing narcissism because you are inept, you are incompetent, you are inferior. So you try to project, and rest my lovely, lovely, lovely ancestor, Dr. Frances Cress Wells, in which she broke everything down in the ISIS papers. Whereas they project their insecurities onto us, and no, that's not us. Stop projecting your failures, stop projecting what you did in Europe, whereas we had to resuscitate the whole continent of Europe, because remember, we traveled that Bering Strait, um, the Bering Strait route, whereas we had to go from Europe to all the way to South America. So we are indigenous to all these different continents, and most importantly, the continent of America, because everybody is coming to America and flocking over here based off of foundational Black Americans' intuition, ingenuity. I'm sorry, and our creations, our culture, our music, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I can go down. It's that Majora spirit that they're scared of, and they don't want us to connect with the Most High. And although we have the most connection with the Creator, based off of we're having most based off of us being a melanated creature, and based off of us having our antennas in our hair, that connects us to the outer atmosphere, to the outer creator. Um, we are it. We are it. We are it. That's why everybody looks up to us. And I'm going to land my plane there, people. My people.
Come on with it, Robbie.
I just had one comment slash question. You know how much they paid the sharecroppers to pick that much cotton, and you guys enlightened me that it was 7,000 pieces. That's a lot for $1 a day. How much they paid them.
Jeez.
I I put something in the jumbotron. When you get a chance, listen. There's an ancestor talking about how he said he had in his gleeful naivety. You know what I'm saying? Because I respect our ancestors. He was like, well, there was this one white man came along. He started paying us $2 a day. So everybody started going there. It's just like when you think about how much these people got over, man, and how hard our people work, they dare not ever say we're lazy. If anything, they're freeloaders, and freeloaders don't like you to pull out receipts.
Yeah, I'm a country boy, as are you, Robbie. But in Memphis, I used to live across the street from a old cotton plantation, and when y'all talking about them 100 pound bags, all I was thinking about is how many cuts you got on your motherfucking fingers, because cotton got like a little like a rose, got thorns on it, man. That shit'll slice your fingers up,
You
man.
know what? I should try to get my dad to come in here one day and talk about it because my dad actually used to pick cotton and my grandfather did because in Jefferson, Georgia, where there when he was younger, he said they used to go and work there sometimes as teenagers. But here's the thing. He said that a lot of times what they would do is play with the scale so that they could cheat you out of the cotton. So what my dad said, what they learned to do is to pour water on the cotton to make it weigh more to offset the scale. See, our people are smart, man.
That's awesome. Speaking about cheating the system, the railroad companies got over like a fat rat. Maybe reparations could be allowing us to do some of the shit the railroads did, including but not limited to, according to what Dr. Claude Anderson said, quote, the railroads such as Illinois Central were allowed to purchase additional millions of acres from the government at the price of 5 cents an acre to build additional tracks. The same railroads later made massive fortunes by reselling the land they received free from the government to land speculators. Dr. Howard Zinn indicated the potential profits by stating, quote, within 10 years, the Illinois Railroad line publicly announced that it had 1.1 million acres, or less than one half of its original grant, for sale in 40-acre lots, upwards at prices ranging from $5 to $25 per acre, whereas the national domain was offered at $1.25 per acre. They got over, man. How about that? How about they sell us some land for a penny an acre? I pay it. I pay it cash. Come on, station.
Good question. Does anyone see Two True, a lady named Two True Stacia in a waiting area? Because she's been sitting there a while, and now
Oh,
she's a
she
speaker.
came up and now she's
Okay,
a speaker.
okay, all right.
She moved around.
Sorry, I
Come on,
got.
Station.
I'm sorry, I got dropped. Um, but go ahead. Go ahead.
Nah, you can speak. You got the floor.
Okay. I just wanted to say that in regards to the railroad, I don't know why often we are totally left out of the conversation of building the railroads. It's always attributed to the Chinese and Irish, and they say indentured servants, but of course, the railroads actually did own slaves and also rented out slaves from plantations as well. And so, in renting out, of course, they paid the plantation owner, but that is still the usage of slave labor. But I don't know why that is always the case. Even when I was in school, I was always told that it was the Irish, it was the Chinese, it was indentured labor, but it was never discussed, or they never talked about slave labor used for the railroads, especially in the South. And in the South, it was all slave labor that built the railroads, especially
It,
prior
it,
to the
Oh,
Civil War.
really? I never. They said that the Chinese built it, or they just didn't mention it.
They would say that it was the Chinese, it was Irish, and indentured servants.
Wow.
Yeah.
Probably because they didn't want to give us credit for anything, which is one of the big things that we're going to have to put the boot down on people and make them do it. Or they didn't want to admit people were enslaved, which is also embarrassing because if you talk about the railroad, now you're going to have to talk about the fact that they owned people. And that's going to make the choo choo train look bad, right?
yeah, and maybe the choo choo train gonna have to cough up some of that
They
bread.
will.
I tell you, another place where this shit is ignored is in law schools. Most law schools use the same books by Chemerinsky and the same Horn books, and in that contract book, they make no mention of this. They talk all the way around the railroads. They talk about eminent domain, all that, but they don't make mention. It's like, somehow you forgot to talk about slave contracts. So it's a conspiracy. It's ignored on purpose because if you get that academic discourse out there that this whole group of people built this whole fucking city, this whole fucking country, it will be logical to conclude that this group of people needs to be compensated for their actions, which brings it to us to the second point. Did we get compensated for our actions, Wani?
No.
End of story. And this same paradigm exists today with the 13th Amendment, which allows, what does it say? Neither slavery nor servitude, but for the commission of a crime. So to this day, you got brothers in prison making all kind of shit for free under the 13th Amendment. Ain't nothing changed, man. Like, we still in the same shit, man. Nothing's changed. You know, when I was in undergrad the second time around, they had inmates come on campus in white uniforms and cut the lawn, and most of them was black under a convict leasing program. Why is that a thing? Why does that exist? Does that create an incentive to lock young black men up to keep the lawn clean? What do I know? In the jumbotron, I'm gonna put a little scholarship on the 13th Amendment. I wanted to kind of touch on the 13th Amendment today because the 13th Amendment allows for this whole railroad paradigm to still to be alive and well in our country. This coming from a scholarship comes from Professor Chris Hedges, who says, "quote But corporate profit is not limited to building and administrating prisons. Corporations rely on prison labor. Federal prisoners, who are amongst the highest paid in the U.S. prison system, make as much as $1.25 an hour. Produce military helmets, uniforms, pants, shirts, ammunition belts, ID tags, and tents. Prisoners work often through subcontractors for major corporations such as Chevron, Bank of America, IBM, Motorola, Microsoft, McDonald's. McDonald's is made in prison, has its uniforms made in prison. AT&T is made in prison. Starbucks made in prison. Nintendo, Victoria's Secret. Of course, Victoria had a secret. It's by the secret her drawers is made in prison by a black dude. J.C. Penney. What the fuck is J.C. Penney's making in prison? Sears. Walmart made in prison. Kmart. I thought Walmart was made in China. Nope, it's made in prison. Eddie Bauer made in prison. Wendy's. What the fuck is Wendy's making in prison? Procter and Gamble, Johnson and Johnson, Fruit of the Loom, more underwear being made in prison. Caterpillar, Sarah Lee being made in prison. Fucking Quaker oatmeal is made in prison. Mary Kay, Microsoft, Texas Instruments, Dell, Honeywell, Hewlett Packard, Nordstrom's, Nortel, Revlon, Macy's. Macy's is made in prison. Pierre Cardin and Target is made in prison.
Wow.
Chris Hedges says prisoners in some states, you ready for this, ladies and gentlemen? Run dairy farms. Them motherfuckers making milk in prison. Is a cow in prison? How that
Yeah, I
work?
saw the people
They
that are
say,
giving them the food or the and having sex with them for the cows.
oh,
The ones that
oh,
get busted all the time.
jeez. They staff call centers in prison. I knew that. Take hotel reservations in prison. Work in slaughterhouses. They carry out public service such as collecting highway trash, like I was telling you in college. And last but not least, a Louisiana sheriff in October 2017 held a press conference to denounce a prisoner release program because it cost his department free labor. I don't want to release them. They're doing good jobs for me. It's an incentive. It's
Oh
a
my
it's a
God.
a fruit. It's
That's what
ridiculous.
the
Like no, why is nobody talking
that's
about
what the
this?
Congolese said. But you know what? It'll probably result in some sort of lawsuit. I have never spoken to one of these prisoners on and who do they answer the phone for? Because I just get people that can't speak English. I wish they would use somebody and actually pay these guys and women because we do need people that speak English. That list is
It's true.
horrible, Professor. That is shocking. They just
Yeah,
my contention since I was a teenager is that this country cannot function without slave labor. Just because they freed the slaves didn't mean that they still didn't need slaves. Because they do, and that's why they started opening up the border to bring all these dingbats over here. Unfortunately, they're paying them. That's how stupid the country is. They're not going into any agricultural, they're going to hotels. And we have to pay $5,000 per month and up to 15 and 20,000 for some of these big eight family people. So I really don't want to hear about it. I don't know what this country is doing, but certainly no one else is getting these big checks. Why is Dustin here? I mean, what?
who is Dustin?
Just what? What, Dustin? Why?
Just let him
Oh,
up.
oh,
Just let
him.
him
What?
up. Just let
What?
him up.
Dustin, explain yourself, please. How can we help you?
I mean, are you asking honestly, or I mean, she just sounded like she is exasperated from my presence.
What do you want?
I mean, I'm just saying, given her, view on, the history of America, so okay, we're, substituting one slave labor for another.
My view?
Um,
Are you on
no, I'm just
crack?
going
It's
based
not
off
a
what you were
view.
saying.
It's
I'm just
not a
saying go
view.
based off what you were
It's a
saying.
fact. It's not a view.
Dustin, we just read it. It's a fact.
Uh,
Explain how. I want you to defend it. Explain how it's a view. It's a fact. It's in the jumbotron.
Okay, fine. It's a fact. All right. The fact that America is exchanging out black labor for Mexican labor, are those the facts y'all are going on?
Dustin, this ain't. This is not a drinking party. You
Are
you need to
you
find a room
drunk?
that's
Yeah,
labeled
drinking part.
Miller
You're just going to
Lite.
discount me based,
Like,
off the fact
on
that you
this
can't.
count, based
No,
on the
no.
fact that I don't like your accent. You're
Sir,
getting
sir,
on my
but
nerves, boy.
yeah, with all due
Right.
respect, I'm
Yeah,
too
yeah.
sober.
That sounds like a
I'm too
logical
sober to
argument.
listen to this. Have a nice day, sir.
Okay, fair enough. It sounds like a logical argument.
Yeah, I'm too sober to even hear what he's saying. Like what the fuck is he talking
I
about?
don't
Yeah,
know.
the
Like
audacity.
it's in the jumbo it's in the jumbotron. And take that up with Professor Chris Hedges. Take that up. That's a fact, my friend. Like I don't even know what he's talking about. And the sad thing is, I don't think he knows what he's talking about either. He just wanted to argue.
Um,
But what's interesting to me, ladies and gentlemen, is how they always come at our women. Like he didn't get tough with me. He
I
came at
actually
they always
started
come for
it.
the
I
girls.
started it because I just didn't want to hear what he was going to say. He has a
But
history.
still, like I just don't understand how you gonna come for a female like that. I can't comprehend that. That's just me. Maybe I was raised a little differently. Seventh, what you got?
Yeah, I wanted to touch upon the issue you were talking about, all this prison labor and the incentive. Given that we black Americans, we have the highest incarceration rate of anybody in the world. Uh, it's even higher right now than it was in apartheid South Africa. Yeah, so I think that's an issue that needs to be addressed. I'm from Louisiana, and we got the highest incarceration rate per capita in the world. And a lot of these people are in Angola. I even had family in there. Truth be told, they belong in there for the shit they did, so don't feel sorry for them. But the overwhelming majority of the people in Angola are black. Most of them are doing life sentences, and you talk about all that labor, that free labor. Yeah, I mean, you go to if you've ever been to Angola, it's an old plantation that was turned into a prison labor camp. So that has to be addressed. We got to address that. With that, I yield the mic.
Yeah, I went to graduate school with a very ignorant ass motherfucker whose uncle was the um shit. I almost said pastor of Angola. He was a warden of Angola, and she
Burl
said
Kane.
I don't even care what his name was, but she would this girl, my uncle, not my uncle, it was her daddy. My daddy was he's a warden at Angola, and she in a whole graduate program to be a teacher or a principal or a counselor to black kids, right? So she thinking, my daddy's the warden at Angola, and they don't know how to do nothing, just speaking bad against blacks like we were some animals. And I sat back thinking, wow, and this lady gonna be somebody teacher, somebody principal, probably in a foundational Black American neighborhood in Louisiana. She's setting it up for him to go back to prison. You know what I'm saying? She getting them in the classroom and sending them straight to Angola. She thought it was just cute. Rivy, what you got, Marine?
You guys already go over the Chinese building all the railroads, and I'm
Uh
being
oh.
facetious.
I know.
Okay, because I just got into it. It's funny that you brought that up. I don't know if you were in that space. It's this guy. He's from Korea. He thinks he's a white supremacist. Uh, Something Kwan. And
Seems right.
anyways, and I don't really fully know the history, but I know that that's somewhat correct. But they only sent so many. Was it 18 something? A little after slavery. Was slavery ended? What 1864 or something like that? So around, I'd say early 1800s. Slavery's probably still going on. It was Wild West, right? But they still used us, and furthermore, they paid the Asians. And what they like to say is, no, no, we're not getting no pay. He's like, get the fuck out of here. You guys got paid,
How are
just
they
like
not getting paid? They were workers.
yeah, but they got paid. The white man paid them like pennies to the dollar, whatever little bullshit that they
They
did.
immigrated over here. That's their problem. They should
What?
negotiate better money.
Well, they immigrated over here, and I can't remember what was going on in was it Hong Kong or was it Shanghai? There's a reason why they came over here. I can't remember what it was, but it wasn't. They have their own issue. They were tethers. They they weren't
Well,
even
bottom
necessarily
line, they
tethers.
all have countries with their names on it, and they can go to hell back over there. Check this out. He's Korean, and he's trying to say that the Chinese did something. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes, they like all sticking together. It's funny because I was like,
Yeah,
I mentioned.
until
I'm
Genghis Khan gets up in their ass,
wait.
then all of a
Isn't
sudden it
Diane
knows.
Yap Japanese? So I mentioned Diane Yap and he shut up. Like, the Japanese and the Koreans don't get along. Like,
Mhm.
So I was like, yeah, Diane Yep would probably say the same kind of thing, right? And it just, I've been manipulative when I go into certain spaces, and I like to do it. It's fun. There's another guy that's, I can't remember his name. America First is a black dude. It was a space with HT. I don't really want to make a point out of this, but I remember it's a black dude. And he's constantly talking about how black people are ghetto and all this other shit. And I was like, okay, yeah, we're ghetto. And this HT, the Giga, he's this nationalist socialist guy. Y'all probably seen this dumbass shit that he does where he threatens kids or yells at kids and calls them the N word. So, anyways, I was like, hey, what do you think instead of placating this man? What do you think about him? He hates black people. He's black himself. He hates black. Well, I don't hate black people. I hate ghetto activities and I hate FBA. Okay, cool. You hate FBA. What do you think about him? He thinks he can join you guys' group. He thinks he can be a national socialist. He thinks he can be a Nazi. Oh no, I'm a groiper and I follow Nick Fuentes. He was like, well, first of all, you're a nigger. That's what he told him. And you can't date our women. I don't care what that Mexican Nick Fuentes. And I wanted him to hear him say these things. I wanted him to hear him call him a nigger as well, and that he's useless and that he's the lowest scum
Wait,
of
he
the earth.
said which women? White women or
Yeah,
Korean
because the
women?
dude dates white women. It's obvious the guy dates.
I mean, wait a minute. Who
You
was
know
he
I'm talking.
arguing with? The Korean guy or a
No, no,
white
this is
guy?
a black dude. His name I don't know if he's
Arguing
black.
with a white guy?
No, it's a black dude named.
You're not talking about
I'm
Andre,
No,
are
no,
you?
not
confused.
Andre.
I'm trying to get the people in. Okay, wait. First,
America
we were
First.
talking. Wait. First, we were talking about a Korean guy that was being racist.
Right. And he was in a different space. This is a whole nother space. I was making a point, but talking about kind of
Now you're talking
manipulating
about this guy and another guy, correct?
America First. America First
I
is a
don't know
guy.
these people though. You got to tell me what their backgrounds are.
America First goes into rooms and trolls. I don't know if he claims he's FBA. He says I'm FBA, but I don't label myself as FBA. Even if he is, he LARPs as a veteran. He never served in the military. He talks about how he was in the army. I asked him some questions, and I don't know if it was Chalk or Carlos. We asked him some because they were in the army, and they asked him specific questions he couldn't answer. He didn't really know, so it was like, ah, yeah, you freaking the front to appease your little white friends. So that's a whole nother situation. But what I'm talking about is manipulating the situation with him being in that room and like talking trash about black folk. But that's neither here nor there. HT the Giga. Now, I don't know if you guys know about this guy. And I had a room where I said, fuck FBA. I like being honest, right? Because I got tired of the arguing. I'm not going to lie. And Professor, I've been giving you your grace and your roses because you and there's like Robbie, and I think I told Robbie the other day, I have yet to see a space where y'all have these dumbass troll rooms or there's a back and forth or where you even allow a back and forth. I've yet to see that. And I'm going to kneel down to you because as a troll, that's a lot. Because usually rooms will disintegrate into trolling, and people will be centered because they've allowed themselves to become centered, or the room
Hey,
is
you
toxic.
don't like troll rooms?
I love a good troll space, but I want to get
Why are you mad
scholarships.
at me?
No, I'm not mad at you. Wait a minute, what happened
I
here?
can't help it if I'm in the middle of a lot of troll activities.
Why
I'm
did
naturally a troll. This is a
okay,
disease
then
that I
you and
have.
I are the same person.
I have a disease.
There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with a little trolling. But what I'm saying is there's nothing wrong with trolling as long as you admit, and you just did that. And I have to give you your roses because you just admitted that you do a little trolling. However, Wani is known for traveling the globe, literally. So you gotta give her a little more than just trolling because she's actually doing shit. Versus me, who doesn't do jack shit at all uh, in this world, but get on apps and rant. But anyways, so we're talking about the whole Asian people who created the railroads, and there were no black people because that was the whole thing. He said, blacks, you guys are always talking about how you guys built everything and you guys built nothing. And one of the biggest things that I brought up, and I'll land here, was he said, uh, you guys should, you probably heard this before, seen a meme or seen white people post this. So if you ever see this posted, this is your response. So you'll see white people say black people should be appreciative that we died in a civil war for them.
We already know the answer to that.
Yes.
We won the Civil War. We also lost huge numbers of people. We contributed 500,000 people because we contributed 200,000, and then nearly another over 200,000 for auxiliary in order
Right.
to make sure that there's hospitality so people could have food, people could have clean uniforms, people could be together so that
We
they could
also
actually people like Harriet Tubman were nurses and hospitality and spies, and
the black
she was a Renaissance woman.
but the black soldiers also took
What
a
what what's
significantly
what's
less pay cut. Our, we
what?
never
Oh, dude,
go ahead.
Rivy, you're right on
We never
target.
got our
Like this is
pension.
so. Check this out. This is so strange, Rivy. I swear to God, the next thing I was gonna say, I was gonna bring to both of your attention how coincidentally my book fell open to as y'all were talking to an article by Dr. Claude Anderson that says black vets denied access to preferential wealth. Dr. Anderson says in 1642, the same year that Massachusetts introduced slavery into the colonies, Virginia enacted a law forcing blacks to join the military and protect the larger white society. In 1763, Virginia became one of the first colonies to set aside a large section of territory west of the Alleghenies as bounties for veterans. Later in the 19th century, a veteran land program was established by federal government to recognize and reward servicemen who had served in the wars from the Revolutionary through the Spanish American War with Mexico. Blacks have participated to varying degrees in nearly every war in which this country has engaged since the year 1619, yet blacks have received little monetary compensation for any form of their military service to this nation. The Veteran Land Program offering the veterans either a homestead site or 6 feet for a burial site, since blacks were the only non English racial or ethnic group that had fought in every major military involvement. Since the initial settlement of 1619, they were optimistic that perhaps they would be included in the Veterans Land Program. However, black veterans did not qualify for the homesteading sites. Until 1960s, black veterans fortunate enough to be eligible for a free, this shit sad as hell, for a free 6 foot burial
And
site
hold on,
were
we
discriminated.
were not allowed to
Go
be
ahead.
in the Arlington National Park, be buried there
Wow.
until the Vietnam War. We weren't allowed to participate in the GI Bill, Vietnam War. Actually, I might be wrong. Korean War. The end of the Korean War, we were allowed to utilize the GI Bill. We were allowed to use our pension. I mean, we're talking about 1969. Uh,
That's
they
terrible.
removed. They took up until 1960s, 1970. The Buffalo Soldiers or um, segregation in the military stopped in 1964, 1965. A little after the Civil Rights Act. Not right when the Civil Rights Act, but a little after. The military hadn't quite caught up yet. There were still segregated units in both military sectors, and furthermore, the United States Marine Corps did not allow blacks in the Marine Corps. They're called the Montford. Look this up. It's really interesting.
My granddaddy was a
Yeah,
Montford Marine.
the
Montford
Montford
Marine.
Marines. Really important that you salute these dudes, the ones that are still alive. I think that was the 1960s. Yeah, I mean, we fought in every single war, every aspect of war. We didn't receive our pensions. You guys, if we were officers, we see movies like what was the name of that movie that came out with Denzel in it and all that. There was another movie where they highlight black military guys, right, from the World War One, World War Two kind of thing, right. But what they don't tell you is that we were the most to get uh, Article 15s, Article 32s for small stuff, for disrespect, for saying, "Hey, I don't think that's a good idea." They deny that we fought in any aspect of World War One or World War Two. World War One, there's a story about my favorite story of World War One. There's a black dude set up in a tower. He was part of the Harlem Hellfighters. Uh, Something Johnson, Private Johnson. We'll just say his name's Private Johnson. I think his last name was Johnson. Set up in a tower. Him and his buddy were getting shot at. Buddy got wounded. They were firing down on the Germans. You know, the Germans weren't giving up. He came down out the tower with a fucking buck knife and took out like 8 Germans with a buck knife. Like cut them open, slit their throats, just running at them, getting shot at. True story. You gotta look this up. Crazy
The name
shit.
of the movie is
It's a
called
vengeful.
Glory, right? Isn't the name of the movie called Glory?
No, that's from the Civil War. Glory is from the Civil War. This isn't a movie. This is an actual true story about a brother. His name is Private Johnson. He was in.
Somebody just sent that
Yeah,
to me.
Glory is a true story too, though. I think that's about William Sherman. I believe.
Yeah, it's the 54th Regiment,
Yeah,
the Black
but
Regiment.
this.
It's not about Tecumseh Sherman, but that was his
Okay.
he's in there briefly
Well,
in the
you guys know
movie.
Rambo, right?
Yeah, that was a
This
black
is
dude.
literally about him. This is literally about him.
Oh, okay.
So, and it's crazy because nobody knows that. But the dude literally climbed down from this tower. It was a watchtower. Climbed down from the tower where you're doing sentry duty. Came down from the tower and took out Germans. It's on record. It's verified. The dude,
Right.
badass.
Yeah, and that's right. Rambo, the dude, the actual Rambo, I think was he was a Seminole or some shit, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's supposed to
Because he
be
kept
half
he had the
Irish,
That's
half German,
hey,
half.
that's Fagan. Fagan was in the Philippines. That's what Tariq was talking about. That he was
okay.
the Rambo. But hey, dude, you talking about the Black Death? That dude, he got a Medal of Honor posthumously or something like that.
Yes, yeah,
That
that dude.
crazy. He
Yeah,
was
man,
nuts. He was fucking
cold,
nuts, man.
cold as
He was
ice. You
no
gotta be
joke.
cold. You gotta be cold as ice to get shot. Because that's the other part. He was shot multiple times and kept going. He didn't even like I'm just getting. We talk about the Marine Corps. We talk about this guy John Basilone, right? He's the baddest dude in the Marine Corps. He's been, if you ever watch Pacific, there's a specific scene where he walks out in front of the Japanese and he's got this grease gun and he's shooting at him and he gets shot multiple times. This is a true story. That he burned his arm significantly because those grease guns get pretty hot. I don't know if it was a grease gun or SMG, but he had this weapon and he burned himself, got shot a bunch of times. He had a fucking weapon that shot ammunition. There's outside is like one Mexican guy that was in Vietnam. There's been no account where a guy gets shot multiple times with a fucking knife while he's getting shot at, just stabbing people, just losing his like fuck you, I'm killing all you motherfuckers. So me personally, I'm a little crazy. I love the stories of Nat Turner. I don't think people are like, yo, you butt batshit crazy, but a lot of people who sit here and talk about Nat Turner, I think the only thing they did was watch, you know, uh, Birth of a Nation, the new one. I don't think they've really read about the Nat Turner rebellions. It's pretty fucked up. I mean, he went all the way in, and I don't need to explain on this app what he did, but he really did not like white folk.
Hey, brother, can you tell
That
me?
space is coming, Ruby.
Oh, okay. Can y'all tell me where I can read some of that? Cause I knew about Nat Turner, but I never read none of the graphic.
You breaking up, bro?
Damn. Sorry.
Or I'm breaking up. Bro. You breaking up real bad. Drop down. I'll bring you back up.
Well,
No,
that was
he
it. I'm
needs
done.
this.
I'm talking.
He
I'm just
needs
gonna
to.
rant.
It. I don't think dropping down helps in that case. He just needs to get into a better place.
I'll turn the
Yeah,
Wi-Fi
maybe
on.
maybe he does. Furthermore, with respect to, I think Rippy brought up the Chinese for a moment. Y'all brought up the Chinese and that discrepancy. Uh, Interestingly enough, the Claude Anderson book, fell open on a page that talked about the veterans, and as I was glancing down, the next page talks about the Chinese. According to Dr. Anderson, quote, as the world of gold rush spread, large waves of Southern Europeans, Chinese, and Mexican immigrants sought their fortunes in California. Whites considered Chinese more acceptable than Indians or black. Accordingly, state and federal government officials praised them as hardworking and thrifty. The Chinese were accepted into the ranks of the gold seekers. Some staked claims and even found a little gold, while others worked in mining camps doing odd jobs. But most of the Chinese failed to find gold and had little choice but to open ethnic businesses or offer their labor at low wages. Similarly, Mexicans had a great access to the gold fields that either blacks or Indians. The greater acceptance of Mexicans could have resulted from the Spanish culture that was prominent in California, or from the fact that Mexicans had been categorically and historically abused by white society. Although Mexicans ranked lower than Chinese in preferred skin color. In the early 1850s, the total number of Mexicans was less than 3,000 in the entire nation. Therefore, they did not present either a challenge or a threat to whites, as did more than 5 million blacks. Though Chinese and Mexicans were non white, they supported European whites' practices of excluding blacks and Indians from prospecting for gold. Man, I tell you, why does everybody get with the white supremacists and turn on us? I mean, damn, we can't even prospect for gold. Quote, a minister for this period reportedly observed that the immigrant became the bitterest of the Negro haters. Oh, Dr. Claude Anderson says the immigrant became the bitterest of the Negro haters within 15 days of their naturalization as American citizens. I need to underline that. Apparently, learning to despise blacks was an important aspect in the acculturation of immigrants. Blacks carried a heavy burden. They were the target of everyone's hostilities, but were totally unable to defend themselves or compete. Ain't that a mess? That's what we're dealing with right now. Let me fold this page over. Anywho, where were we, Wani?
I forget we were talking about the military and everything.
Compensation. I'm gonna go so far as to say that, given the fact we didn't get compensation, part of our reparations claim needs to be, and this is gonna be a little ballsy, but I'm gonna go there. It needs to be with the railroad
Hmm.
company because they made so much money and they're making so much money. I met a guy when me and my wife moved to Memphis. Um, Young guy. Like I was in grad school and this dude was younger than me. He was like early 20s. And we lived in a real expensive apartment. And I'm like, why does he live here? You know? And we sat out by the pool and drank some beers one day. And I said, what you do? He said, man, I'm an engineer. And I was like, man, you too young to be an engineer, man. You got to get a degree to be that, right? He's like, no, man, I'm an engineer on a train. I was like, oh, cool, 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 cool. Um, how much they pay you? This in 2012. He's making $80,000. At like 22. Well, anyway, I asked about requirements and how to get that job, and I look into it, and that job is held down by a certain group of people. It's kind of like the trade union, how they hold it down and lock blacks out. I had a friend that wanted to be an engineer, a black dude, and he was telling me he had been applying. He worked at a certain train company for years. He's in his early 30s, and he had been applying for 10 years. And he said, we just don't get those jobs. And I began to wonder because my neighbor, who was an engineer, was number one, he was an alcoholic. Number two, he was late for work all the time. Like, how did he get that job? We're froze out of like these really good blue collar jobs as well. And that needs to be part of our reparations claim. There needs to be a way.
Okay, so
Ro- Go ahead.
let me just add this. I wanted to ask you if you know anything about this. What didn't the white supremacists didn't they make a law restricting the railroads from buying too many slaves?
I don't know. I'm gonna have to do research on
Yeah,
that. I'm not sure about that.
because it was like the railroads were they drove the slave prices so high that that's the only reason why they put a limit on their purchasing us. So
That sounds
yeah,
right. That sounds right.
so that's another reason why we need reparations. Yep.
It's ridiculous, and we don't want to go into eminent domain. We don't want to do that. How many black neighborhoods were destroyed because the railroad company said that would be a shorter, a
Hmm.
shortcut. So let me destroy grandmama's house. I have a friend. She's an attorney in Memphis, and was one of them cities that was well, it is still foundational Black American, but it used to be, according to her, she's older. She's in her 70s, still practicing law, and she said back in the day, downtown Memphis used to be a real close knit Black community full of it was egalitarian, almost like everybody stuck together because we all, it was a Black grocery store. And the weird thing about Memphis, if you go there tomorrow, those buildings still stand. Those old Black grocery stores, and the buildings didn't go anywhere. They just kind of boarded them up, and they people graffiti on them. But there's, you can see like remnants of something that used to be. But she took me. I went to church with her because we were working together. She was a professor at the college I taught, and we she took me around the neighborhood telling me how things when Memphis was before King got killed and how it was such a bustling black community. And I was like, counselor, what happened to this? How did they destroy this? And she pointed at the railroad track and the highway. So cities like Memphis that had a real close knit black community, they built a highway through it to create division, to break up the black neighborhoods and put a railroad through it to break up. So that needs to be addressed as well. We need areas. If they would give the railroad, according to Dr. Claude Anderson, acres at what, 5 cents an acre? Man, we need acres. We need a whole swath of land where we could build our own jurisdiction under our own law. Like Native, I was looking at Native American reservations. I had no clue that they have their own law. Like I want to say they have their own bar, like their own bar section. Like they have their own law. They have their own cops. You know what I'm saying? You need an ID to get on that motherfucker. We need that. We need a place where our kids can go to school, and anybody coming up on that fucking piece of land needs to show ID. Even police, foreign police, got to show ID to get up on it. You know what I'm saying? Imagine that's the type of stuff we need. But I digress.
Anyway, these people that have gotten reparations have one injury. We have thousands of injuries. They took one event, being locked up and interred, and got reparations from that. One event. Most of these people, except for Native Americans who have multiple events, but most of these people that got reparations have one thing that happened to them. And all they have to do is say, this happened to me, and keep on filing their paperwork. I'm not saying it's easy. I know that it took a while for Japanese people to get the reparations, and they just tried to. In my opinion, they were justified because what are we going to do? We have a bunch of enemies that we've brought into the country. We don't know who is safe and who is not. These people are flipping. We had a terrorist attack at the military. Everybody swept that under the rug. You've got a bunch of foreigners in high level positions at the military trying to use them as interpreters and intelligence and whatever, and they just turn around and knock you out. We have lots of that going on. We have a bunch of Chinese people trolling around, squatting out babies on golden visas and doing every manner of things. They're breaking every law that can be broken from the top to the bottom, from slinging ass in the streets to being a high level spy. They're doing it all. And we don't know who's going to flip or when they're going to flip. And that's an issue that this country has. People need to be locked up. People need to be looked at sideways. People need to be vetted. And this country doesn't have the balls to do it. But I will say this, the last time that these things happened, people ended up on a rope. But this country does not have the stomach to do that. The things that these people have done, the spying, they just get caught spying, get caught committing treason, and they just sweep it under the rug. It's
Mm-hmm.
almost like they don't even want to prosecute it because it'll make them look stupid. That's the part that gets me. They don't even want to admit it because it makes them look weak. In the meantime, we're still being attacked.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. No, they're not going to admit it. The white supremacists, the system that is currently what we're under, subjugated under.
My bad. I hit the wrong button. My bad. Wrong
Unmute
button.
yourself. Just unmute yourself. He accidentally muted you. Okay, go.
Yes, I'm sorry. I apologize, my people. No, because the white supremacists they understand that they have a goal, they have an agenda. How can we get these indigenous, these foundational Black Americans about out of the paint? How can we get them up out of the paint? And no, we have to inundate them with different foreigners. We have to inundate them with different immigrant groups because they're not going to have the same stake that we have. They're not going to have the same fight that we have. They're not going to have the same moral fiber as we have. So no, no, we're not. No, we're going to cut off our nose to spite our face, or cut off our face to spite our nose, whatever, because we have a goal. We have a goal, and we need to nullify. We need to nullify these these foundational Black Americans, these people who have the moral fiber, who have the wherewithal to be subjugated, to be destroyed, have our community destroyed. Um, we have the wherewithal to do it all. So no, our goal is whether we're on the Republican side or whether we're on the Democratic side, whether we get the whole society and not including foundational Black Americans. Oh, we can get them as well. We can pay them off and give them some nigger trinkets or whatnot. But the whole goal is to disparage, to show them disdain, to constantly block your pages because you're disseminating information, or promulgating information that um, is going to wake up people because we have that moral fiber. No, they're not going to say, oh, well, oh, they are going to continue to bring in more immigrants because we need to replace these people. They have a powerful voting bloc. Um, they are powerful, and we got to do something about it because we tried to do something about it before, and we're not going to stop. We're not going to stop killing y'all, foundational Black Americans, killing us, foundational Black Americans, because you guys are a problem. You guys ache us.
Well, you kind of touched on it for a moment. I did some research back at the historical black college I used to teach at, and discovered it's hidden in plain sight. It's kind of common sense, but it blew me away that America is a hierarchy. Now, Dr. Anderson said years ago that America is nothing new. It's the old European royalist system, except instead of using bloodlines, they use skin color. Right? In England, you have to have a royal bloodline. In America, you just be white, and you have the advantage. But excuse me, what I noticed is just like the royalist system of, if you think back to seventh grade, kings, queens, nobles, knights, peasants, and serfs. Um, Blacks in America, foundational Black Americans, have been put, according to the system, have been designated to be the bottom of the totem pole in the peasant area in order for this system. Like somebody was saying earlier, I don't know if it was Nikki, I forget who was saying this, and somebody in space was saying that America needs an exploit a class of people to exploit.
Mm-hmm.
Capitalism is
Mm-hmm.
exploitive. It is. The Karl Marx can kiss my ass. He was a worthless, sorry ass Satanist. However, he Karl Marx was right. He said capitalism is revolutionary. It's a
Mm-hmm.
revolutionary force that will um continue to exhaustion or collapse. He was right about that. That's about the only thing he was right about. And I love I'm a capitalist, so I'm not really criticizing capitalism,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm saying that capitalism has to have a class of people to exploit, and it's always been us. And the narrative is it has to be us. Dr. Claude Anderson kind of proves it on page 141 in his book when he says, though Chinese and Mexicans were non-white, they supported Europeans whites of excluding blacks and Indians from prospecting gold. A minister from this period reportedly observed that these immigrants became the bitterest Negro haters within 15 days of their naturalization as American citizens. Apparently, learning to despise blacks was an important part of the acculturation of immigrants. Yes, it is, because the name of the game is no matter how bad things are, at least you're not black. Which is why the country's having the problems that we're having, because we've had several instances of the world seeing black, or what was perceived to be black, via Obama in a high position. And it's like, wait a minute, that wasn't supposed to happen. But we know the real story. Welsing, talk to us.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I wanted to, going back to the trains and everything like that. I don't know if people realize how truly wealthy they are. Do you know they have air rights? um, the railways. Like, say, for example, Amtrak. They have air rights. So, in other words, they cannot, no one can develop or build any kind of structure that is deemed, above their land or their own infrastructure. So, like a good example, Chicago is Amtrak's hub. All those buildings that are built, say like around Michigan Avenue and everything like that, they have to quote unquote rent that space, that airspace from Amtrak. New York City is another example. You cannot build anything without their permission, and they rent airspace from them. And that's a lot of money. That's a lot. That's wielding a lot of power and money. And so I just wanted to share that with you because not a lot of people know about it, and not a lot of people talk about it. So thank you.
Yeah, the railroads are outrageously powerful. Men's, what's up?
There we go. Hey, good night. Good night, everybody.
Hey,
I hope all of y'all are doing well.
Is men's talking?
yes.
Uh
All
oh.
right, I'm going to drop down and come right back up.
All right.
All right, man.
Go ahead,
Once
men.
again, dang, man, right on the money. I think this is a great question because I hear a lot of onions. Excuse me. That's what I was just watching this movie. This series. It was a whole bunch of. It was calling the people coming here onions and stuff. And they was coming in for railroad work and everything. And I felt like it was such a huge misrepresentation of the portion of labor that was mainly um, made up of Asians. I don't think it was a huge portion of labor. It was mostly us. And I wanted to read this. Uh, I'm just going to read this and put some things in perspective here. The building of America's railroads involved African Americans, many working as slaves. Virtually every railroad built in the pre emancipation era South was built using slave labor. During the Civil War, 1861 to 1865, the U.S. military railroads, USMRR, employed thousands of freedmen and contraband slaves, as seen here. Besides those who worked on transcontinental railroad, tens of thousands of African Americans worked in the railroad industry thereafter. Railroad and mining employment, unlike sharecropping and domestic service, offered a more economically independent life for African Americans. African American railroad workers helped build the nation we know today. And there's a picture. they, this is from Library of Congress, posted in the Jumbotron. But the picture is African American railroad workers circa 1862 to 1863 during the Civil War before the Transcontinental Railroad years. Andrew J. Russell is the photographer. So I'll post that. So I say all of that, and I read that because there's this idea that like we somehow was a part of every development of America, but then when it comes down to something that the Asian people had participated in, all of a sudden we just dropped the ball. We didn't build shit in the railroads. They actually argue with us. They were like, "Well, what about the Asians? They built the railroads." And it was like, "No, I'm sorry.
They
We
wrote the
we
East
we
Coast
did
and the
that
South
too.
too.
We did that
They
too. What's
they
that?
weren't even there.
Yeah, they weren't even there. But it's like their little piece of paid labor that they had, right? They were paid to do it, number one. Number two, it was an option. It wasn't forced. It wasn't forced labor. They wasn't enslaved, and it wasn't because it was their country. They chose to migrate here and participate. And by that, their whatever they did is no in no comparison to what we did. Like it wasn't just our participation; it was also our blood, sweat, and sacrifice, which people would say tears. because that was what it taken to survive in our own land was to do such things. It wasn't what was taken to survive in theirs because they left theirs. Um, but I just wanted to give y'all one more thing. This is slavery in the Southern railroads. Some of the first, longest, and most ambitious railroads in the nation were built in the South beginning in the late 1820s. So we already know what that means, right? By 1860, the South Railroad network was one of the most extensive in the world, not just America, in the world. And nearly all of it had been constructed with slave labor. Moreover, railroad companies became some of the largest slaveholders in the South. All right, that's all I wanted to give to y'all. I mean, I have sections that I could give y'all, like contracts. Railroads bought and sold slaves with contracts and elaborate printed bills of sale. They recorded these events in the balance sheets and company account books. Railroads also developed forms for contracts to hire enslaved labor from slaveholders because the company was liable for the loss of enslaved property. Contracts often spelled out detailed provisions for accidents and the conditions of labor. Railroad companies in the U.S. South reported to stockholders annually on the amount they invested in human property and on the uses of enslaved labor in their operations. Railroad company officers, construction engineers, and slave traders corresponded regularly in the 1850s about buying and selling slaves and organizing their labor operations around slavery. So when y'all bring up the railroad topic, that's why I was very excited because all the stuff I just read to you, I've read it, and it's alarming when you hear how people try when they'll throw this in here. You know, we helped build this country too. We built the no. You participated in a minute portion, and we did that shit. You wasn't even here.
No,
Right,
came
right.
later. All these people came after it was a functional. Who wants to come to an open field? Think about it. Where are you going to stay? What houses are you going to live? Of course, most of these people, they're leeches and parasites. Of course, they waited until someone built the country. We already know that white people are too lazy to do it, and they stood there in an open field while the wind was blowing up their suspenders, trying to figure out who to enslave. Literally wrote letters about it. Should we enslave them some more? They look broken down and sickly, and they don't, they look pathetic. Let's go get some other people. Literally wrote letters about it. This isn't rocket science. They wrote letters to missionaries, of course. Christian missionaries is
Makes sense to me.
Christians
Makes
and
sense to me.
Islamic people were the ones on the trans-Saharan slave trade and the transatlantic slave trade doing deals. Christians and Islamic people, that's who was doing that in their little Islamic outfits and talking on their little Christian letters and their missionary letters, deciding who to enslave. Back to what I was saying. Um, these people did not do anything on that railroad except work, just like you would come over here and work as a mechanic. They didn't make any dent in that railroad. It was 700 miles and they couldn't even finish that. That is a generous offer. Okay? Chinese people didn't build squat. They were over here with other immigrants. And they certainly weren't in the South and in the East. They have no inventions here except big teeth, okay? And giving everybody opium and selling their women. That's what they were doing. That's what they're doing now. Hiding out in their little communities. And when they got too full of themselves, when they really started to think they were the white boys' little handmaiden, guess what happened? They swung on a rope and they had to beg Frederick Douglass to help their ass. And he did. He did a whole lot of arguing against the yellow peril propaganda. That's the biggest civil rights hero for Chinese people is Frederick Douglass. He's the only one who spoke against the Yellow Peril, the only one who fought the exclusion acts against them, and the only person who even wrote about it and said that people should be able to immigrate over here. No one else. who is their famous civil rights leader? Nobody. That's why they need to be put on their knees and never allowed up. Because they're beggars and parasites that think they're the white boy's friend, and then as soon as that COVID comes running around, they're going to get slapped upside the head again. And they'll be blaming that on us.
Yeah, history is interesting when you look at it. All right, BJ85LA.
Yo, how y'all doing this evening? I just stepped in and see what y'all was talking about. Sounds very interesting. I'm really tripping off of the Asian community and this affirmative action situation that's going on that they thought they was going to benefit from linking up with the white supremacists or uh, so-called white folks that think that they're superior than the rest of people of color. But I'm just tuning in, listening.
Uh,
Yeah, it's that affirmative action issue is very. I was listening today on the way to work, and it's very fascinating how it just backfired big
of
time.
course. I hope it landed right in their face like a big fart. Okay? You're the one in our programs, dumbass.
I
You're
don't
the
think they
one
saw it coming.
who you're the ones who steal all of the things that we try to create for ourselves. You and white women and gay white men. We got gay white men telling me to get the fuck out the way because I'm not a real woman. So what the hell are you talking about? Of course you bogarted in and took every program that we created for ourselves. Of course you did. And now you're looking around, go, how come I can't get affirmative action? And there's no special programs for people, for BIPOC and people of color. Kiss my ass. We didn't even get to use those programs for all these parasites sucking on the tits of them. And now you got the tits cut off, and then it's got a mastectomy, and you're looking to suck on them again, and they ain't around.
But see, the
Stupid
thing is,
assholes.
we have to be totally honest. Almost every non-white immigrant or citizen of America has benefited from the suffering of black folks, right? From the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th Amendment, kind of set I wouldn't say a standard, but set this table for other immigrants that's non-white that came to this country to benefit off of it. The same as the civil rights movement. And so, I'm a community activist over here in LA. And so we have a lot of these group discussions about, social justice and economic justice and environmental justice. And so, anytime you can trace through history where black folks were fighting for equal rights, other uh, demographics or ethnicities actually came in and then they benefited off of that. The problem is black folks don't realize the benefit from being organized and the difference between organized and mobilized, right? So when you organize, you can be able to do abundance of things. When you just mobilize, you can get 1 million people to DC, but then what's the agenda after that, right? And so these are a lot of the questions that we talk about because we have to continuously remind ourselves that we have to put ourselves in the playing field of saying, okay, we don't just deserve a slice of the American pie, we deserve the ingredients, right? We deserve because we put the work in forcibly, snatched from, wherever we were snatched from and put to work. And so, one of the things that we have to start doing as black folks is focusing on organizing. The Asian community actually did organize, and that's how they got that hate bill or that, so quote unquote hate bill to pass because they actually organized amongst themselves. And so that one of the things that I, inspired to do is to help black folks across America to be able to be organized. You know what I mean? So I'll just leave it at that.
Well, before you become organized, I mean, the first step in this whole equation was to self-identify, because the core of our organizational structure was skewed with the identity that was too ambiguous. So the first step has been taken to identify our lineage, exclusively identify our lineage. Go ahead, Miss.
Man, brother, professor, man, Wani, I hate to be that guy. Why y'all gotta make me that guy? Why, how come I gotta be the one to say it, right? That's not true. It's not. The
About what?
agent, the agent hate bill and all of that. Like, I just don't want us to just be passing on this message that we are not organizing and that everybody else is somehow organizing better than we are, when it's not really true. And the numbers that they have in this country, is just impossible for us to even compare. Number one, and we are organized. In is somebody off the mic?
Be rich, you off your mic.
Yeah, and so we are over, unquestionably over 30 million. People say 40, some people say 50, 60 because of participation in the census, so forth.
60,
Yeah, yeah.
70.
So, for me always to be safe, I could just take, the worst case scenario, the worst case ever. Some people say it's like 3 out of every 10 Black Americans. I say it's 1 out of every 10 Black Americans immigrants. Um, or 1 out of every 10 racially Black classified people in America as
Feels
immigrants.
like everybody but me.
Right? Y'all swear.
They're way overrepresented online. But
Oh
some of
my
y'all,
gosh. I
I don't
swear I feel
know.
like that. That's why I'm like so hesitant on what I say.
Yeah,
Man,
I
that's why I
don't
said
know
30 million.
anymore.
That's why I said 30 million, man. Cause it's like
I don't know anymore.
I just say 30 million because I think I'd rather go with the worst case scenario. Like if so, but even if you take out of the portions of us that are organized, we outnumber all of the Asians that are organized. We outnumber all these other groups that are organized. So it's even like because we are organized and then we have different group clusters of us that are organized in the sense that we have certain things we don't agree on. You know what I'm saying? Like we could break it down to religion, we could break it down to even the reparations conversation. We could break down to politics, like Republican, Democrats. We have a large amount of us, so it's like we have that ability to have clusters of large groups that agree with certain ways of thinking and ideologies, and then these, and of course the larger group has a higher range, but there's only one other group that's really higher. If you remove the white racial structure, right, you have ethnic groups. But when it comes down to the Asian hate bill, to wrap this up, is the reason why they were able to get it. The reason why, and it's not even really for specifically Asians, but yes, it was packaged that way. And the reason why it was conducted so is because they took the momentum that we had while we were organizing, and they came and started this collaboration effort. And it wasn't a whole group of them; it was only a few people, and the people in power thought it best to basically cover their eyes and point at whatever they preferred to give to a group of people to say that something is resolved, to quiet some things down. And the group of people they cherry picked out of it was the Asians, and it's always going to be that way. The minute number is always going to get that from these politicians. You know why? Because they have more people, which is not organized, but they have more individuals in positions of power in politics. You know what I'm saying? And until we remove these people and we have people that we could talk to that represent us to the best of their abilities, or we figure out the better way to hold these people accountable, which the best way to hold these people accountable is to remove their asses from position. We're going to keep dealing with people who prioritize their groups and their classifications over our group and what we're classified as.
Exactly, and the key. I actually agree with that because when you and because we have been organized. Now we're not as organized as we used to be. We were ultra organized, but what gets taken out of context of what nobody says is we're dealing with a whole system that is against us. Like nobody else is dealing with the whole system. I just got through reading Dr. Claude Anderson saying the moment immigrants get over here, they what did they say? Within 15 days, they start colluding on trying to destroy Black Americans.
Mhm.
Like we're dealing with that type of system. Dr. Anderson furthermore says, quote, today there is little cooperation, political or otherwise, between blacks and minority groups. For the most part, ethnic minorities do not support black causes. They have been getting a free ride at black people's expense, on civil rights and minority programs, like Wani was saying earlier. As members of loosely formed political coalitions, they are mostly quiet while blacks agitate, and they're quick to stake their claim on affirmative action benefits won by blacks. Y'all, weren't y'all just talking about that? Dr. Anderson says, from Los Angeles, California to Miami, Florida, conflicts arise between blacks and ethnic groups as they seek their share of power and wealth in the mainstream beyond the shadow of blacks. In 1990 mayoral election in Chicago, Hispanic leaders leapfrogged between white and black factions, offering support wherever they seemed to be the most gain from their Hispanic communities. David Dinkins, the first black mayor of New York City, lost his reelection in 1993 along the lines of racial issues. All ethnic blocs except Puerto Ricans voted against Dinkins. So everybody comes against us. So at some degree, um we're organized, but I will say we were more organized in the past, but we're dealing with a system that comes against us. But I think the problem is we've allowed those people to come in, that whole skin focus kinfolk mantra.
Mhm.
And now that we're saying that's over with, we have a better chance of saying, you know what, let's stand for what we want to stand for and get what we
Ex-
need to get. Go ahead, BJ.
I agree with some of what you said, but the thing is this. So and I'm not one of those people that say, well, I know more than I work for the California Black Power Network. And one of our jobs is to travel across America to go to uh urban areas, quote unquote. Hey, saying that, but to go to areas where there's large black population and to help them organize or to advance, because some of the organizing we've done over the years in LA have worked. And so they fly us out DC, New York, Cincinnati, even Cincinnati, Ohio, which is has a small black population. And so one of the things is, like, if you can go and you could trace back in history, yeah, at some points we were organized. Like some of the demonstrations that King held, right? Wasn't no organizing to that. That was mobilization, getting folks to go somewhere. But what was the agenda after we show up somewhere? Same thing with George Floyd, right? I went out, I helped protest, I helped, you know what I'm saying, with folks or whatever. And then Black Lives Matter just swooped in. It wasn't organized. You had black folks around the country yelling out Black Lives Matter, but who actually was overseeing what they were doing or what was transpiring to help the black community? Nobody, right? When we talking about organized, the difference is, okay, the freedom riders that went down in the South that actually organized folks to vote. Now, one of the things that we look at as far as the difference between federal elections and local elections, and almost every city and every state, the overall number, it drops 35% in the black vote. So when we're talking about organizing, we're talking about organizing in your own community and your own backyard. If you stay in the black community, it should be black politicians that they're representing black folks. It's no excuse to say, okay, well, why don't we have the correct representation for us at the local level if that's where we stay at? Well, what happens is,
Well, I think you're
I'm,
you're
I'm,
kind of
I'm
oversimplifying. Go
no,
ahead.
no, no. So what happens is we don't necessarily go out and speak for ourselves in these local elections, right? So by default, folks that get into these offices, they don't have the black agenda because we're not pressing the issue. Prime example, I stay in Los Angeles. I stay in District 8, right? So now the part of LA that I stay in is South Central Los Angeles. In LA County, the overall black population is 8%, but in this particular South LA neighborhood, it's about, I think I want to say 31 or 32% of the black population. We have a black politician, right? I stay on a kind of like the poor side going towards the east side of LA. Now, because of that, because of redlining, most of the folks that stay over here are kind of on the poorer side. Now, when you go towards the Crenshaw district, those folks are kind of well off, View Park, different things like that. And those are still, prominent black folks, doctors, lawyers, and it's still a black neighborhood. Well, he takes all of the funding that he gets from this whole district and take over there to the neighborhood of where folks are kind of considered more organized than the people are over here. Now, I'm not saying at no fault of ours that we're not organized, because we, being a black person in America, we all live in survival mode. So when they talk about black on black crime or black people don't stick together, more black people are in survival mode, and it's hard for people to stick together when you're in survival mode. Right. So that's basically what I'm saying, is that we can actually put people in places and put people in office, whether it's judges, whether it's the district attorney, whether it's the mayor that appoints the police chief, or whether it's even the LA sheriff. And so when we talking about all the things that affect us on a local level, whether it's police brutality and all of those things, I'm in a lot of these meetings. And when I'm in these meetings, I'm looking around saying, well, where are all the black people that's having the issues throughout this country? And it's not just in LA. Again, I'm going across the nation and I'm asking these same questions. So when I'm looking and I'm fighting for social justice in real time, and I'm looking around and it's only 4 or 5 black people in the room and we're trying to get something done. And when I'm going to go talk to black people, I'm out tabling, I'm out in the community every single day. This is my job, to try to organize black people. And I'm not gonna lie, and I hope it's not nobody in here that's not black, because I would never really admit this to anybody that's not black. It is hard as fuck to get black people to get together so we can press an agenda to say, this is what we need, this is what we want. Right now, they're trying to get rid of Prop 47 with Prop 36. It's so many black people, and it's like a month out where we talking about the election and we trying to educate folks on, nah, we don't need this proposition because this is gonna fuck us over. And it's a lot of people like, oh, I'm not voting because they worried about Trump and Kamala. Fuck what's going on at the federal level, excuse my language. We need to start focusing on what's going on in our own communities. And so until we start putting in the right representation and saying, if you not trying to do what you have to do for our communities and our neighborhoods, then you can get the fuck on, because this is the same thing that these white folks is doing. This is how they were able to get all of these Jim Crow laws passed. If you go through history, and I'm quite sure a lot of y'all folks are educated, when you go through history and you look, the Klan chased the black folks out of town and were able to implement laws that went against the federal constitution. But at the end of the day, they were able to do it because it was at the local level and they controlled that.
Well, that's not necessarily true. If you look at the Great Migration, that was uh, white politicians like Woodrow Wilson in conjunction with immigrants. So again, that was a great example of the Irish, say, and the Italian immigrants working in tandem with the Woodrow Wilson administration. So you're looking, it's more. I see what you're saying, and I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you, brother. But I just don't want it to seem like it's like, oh, well, we're blacks, we just not doing. It's not that simple.
I would
It's more
say I would
complicated.
let him know that California is very, very resistant. They still might live in a bubble because I think that I definitely lived in a bubble in the 70s and 80s. I thought things were going well, going in a good direction. And then other people told me, oh no, it was never going in a good direction. So my perception was different than other people in different parts of America. We did have a bubble and we did feel like things were going well. And it may still be like that for some people. They don't see the urgency because it may not be affecting them, but I don't understand how they couldn't be affecting them. They must be really delusional at this point. It has to be affecting them.
So Juan, that's interesting. So you said that California, basically, if I heard you correctly, you said that things were going well
Mhm.
enough for black
Mhm.
communities that they were like, we don't want to rock the boat.
Not that they didn't want to rock the boat, but they didn't feel the urgency. Like if people are being lynched, then you're
Mm.
going to get mobilized. You don't want that to happen.
Oh,
So when you see people, when you see mixed couples and people running around with their children and nobody's being harmed. And you're over in a getting a taco in East LA, and you getting your lowrider fixed over in East LA, and you think things are going good in the 70s, and there's people are getting along, and then all of a sudden you notice, hey, your whole neighborhood is not Black Americans anymore. It's all people that ran across the border, and it's not the Chicanos because they were here the whole time. But you can't understand what's happening. And the first time that happened, Chicanos did speak out, but they got drowned out. They got drowned out and outpopulated. So they were being told, you don't even speak Spanish. Why don't you shut up? So they were being
Wow.
told off and they just disappeared. It wasn't enough of them to put up a fight. Anyway, let's let Seven speak because
Go
Yeah,
ahead,
all right.
Sam.
Thank you very, very much. Yeah, you're talking about these Asians and the how the affirmative action disband them, and it's showing you that they're not as smart as the white people have bucked their heads up to be. Well, I do work in the physics, and I see it all the time with Asians. Now, truth be told, you got some very smart ones, but then you also got some in there. I would put them on par with charlatans because they really don't know what the hell they're doing, yet they're getting their names attached to papers, but it's the people below them. A lot of them are not Asian who are doing the hard work. I see that right now. So I think, with them seeing that their numbers drop in these Ivy League universities, I think it's really going to give them a wake up call. And you see how they're very emotional and they're reacting with lawsuits. So, yeah, I think they're getting exposed. So with that, I yield the mic.
I, I want to say this though, but see, that's the thing. Asians have always been a tool of white supremacy towards black people. Go to all your local businesses in any black neighborhood. That's the majority of the business owners that own businesses. But then also, they in most major cities they do have their own side of town with infrastructure. When I go to Chinatown in LA,
They don't get
no,
sabotaged.
no, you said what?
They don't
they're
get
not a
Oh no, no,
threat.
no,
sabotaged. They're
absolutely.
allowed to
Because
have it.
the reason being is because they're being used as a tool for white supremacy.
They can't
So
be used as a tool if we don't go to their stores, which I have
right,
not done since I
because
was
we're
14 years old.
right. Hence, go back to
I
uh,
refuse.
hence going back to what I'm saying is that we are not organized, and right now we have Louisiana chicken in LA, which is good. They got some good chicken, but 80% of Louisiana chickens is owned by the Cambodian community, right? So uh, even like I don't know if y'all too familiar with LA, but one of the big pop culture things is the Slauson Swap Meet. You go through there, it's no black vendors inside the Slauson
Right.
Swap Meet. So they've been used to take the money away from the black community. I heard my brother earlier was talking about the Great Black Migration. Well, that's all tied into what we call redlining, and now that was the system because the Great Black Migration is what saved America's economy. You know what I'm saying? If we technically want to be real, when blacks left the South and they started getting jobs and working inside factories during World War II, right? They were accepted into the not they were accepted but hoarded into certain parts of certain towns. So meaning if you came to New York, you had to move to Harlem. If you went to Chicago, you had to move to the South Side. If you came to LA, you had to move to Watts or you had to move south of Central. Hence the area is now called South Central. So when they drew this redlining map and they took all of the investments out of the neighborhood, in return, they denied all the blacks the loans and gave the loans to Asians to start businesses within the black community. Now, when you go to any Chinatown or Korea, we got Little Tokyo. Those are the actual ethnicity groups that own the businesses in that area. How do I know? Because when I drive through there, the writing is either in Chinese or Japanese or it's in Korean, right? And so They have doctors' offices or health clinics. They have grocery stores. They have the corner store. All of those different things, and then you see those people walking around, walking their dogs, and walking through their neighborhood. Meaning that the money that they're spending is also being reiterated into the economy in that area. So you know what I mean. So that's what I'm saying as far as the Asian community has been used as a tool, you know what I mean, against for white supremacy against black folks. And so until we start to wake up,
Which is what we've been saying the whole time, all day. Is that's the plan? That's the game. It's the game plan. It's not. It's the same game over and over again, just different groups. It was done with the Irish and the Italians. Now it's being done with a whole nother group, but it's them versus us. Dr. Anderson said it real clearly on I don't know, I didn't keep the page, but he said it real clear um earlier. I guess I can paraphrase it. He said, yeah, there it is. He said, though Chinese, quote, though Chinese and Mexicans were non white, they supported the whites' practice of excluding blacks and Indians from prospecting for gold. A minister for this period reportedly observed that the immigrants became the bitterest of Negro haters within 15 days of their naturalization as American citizens. Apparently, learning to despise blacks was an important aspect in the acculturation of immigrants. That's the game plan. Bring somebody over here, teach them to hate blacks, focus on the blacks, and then make blacks, suck. Turn blacks, as my friend Robbie Blue would say, into the wealth engine. We're gonna go with Love I Am and then Andy. Go Love I Am.
Very simply stated, what I was going to say is that the wealth engine, because these people came here and having no particular skill set beyond ours. They literally locked us out of our own industries. The hair care industry should have, there should have, we know of Madam CJ Walker, but there should have been tons of Madam CJ Walkers in the hair care industry. One thing that frustrates me about the Asians in particular is because they came here, they were able to secure those loans to open those businesses, and they had no reasonable expectation that they could even have an economic base. But they were literally, there was some negotiation where there was that guarantee that we would be their economic base. And that frustrates me. And today, like when you go in a beauty supply store, there's a lot of products there that are very specific to our community, like a rat tail comb. So now we're getting into the realm of intellectual property. They're selling things that you don't even know what an edge brush is, but now you're able to own the production to the to having these things, and you can buy and sell them in bulk, and you can deny the selling in bulk to our people, but the people who likely are the innovation behind a lot of those products. Who would know what a those braiding racks where you hang the hair, that all of that is intellectual property theft. When you're talking about, like, it's just like little stuff that makes things easier for doing hair that we use on a daily, that they would have, they don't use it, and they would have no knowledge of it. So now there's that, who's showing them what we use, even, like, that's how weird this reality with these groups are, because we've always been an innovative people. We create, we make simple inventions that make our lives easier. And I can look around the beauty supply and I can literally see where there's some exploitation of our intellectual property in there. And it's just, it's a weird reality, because those negotiations, all of them, they literally promise these people industry. And I think that the Asians particularly, I think that they were guaranteed that they would be able to supply us with our, like, daily essentials, those sorts of things. I think that when it comes to, like, the Latinos, maybe they were given the infrastructure, like building or whatever the case, the manual labor type whatever, but they've been guaranteed. And it looks like it's always been about our economic disenfranchisement, and it's it's just so weird. Yeah.
That's the
Yeah, and that's
objective.
that,
Yes.
and yeah, that's it.
Well said, love I am. Andy.
Well, Love I Am has put on has hit on to what ADOS has been saying, that we're an economic harvest group. But to address BJ85LA, I really wanted to talk to him about this particular thing because he mixed a little bit of Black pathology with his own real lived experience, and this is very dangerous. That we have a tendency to do. I want to talk to him about astroturfing, and let me read the definition to you. Astroturfing is a deceptive practice of hiding the sponsors of an orchestrated message or organization, example, political, advertising, religious, or public relations, to make it appear as though it originates from and is supported by unsolicited grassroots participants. And so when we start out in any political or social endeavor, I need him to understand that there is already organization well funded to oppress us, stop us, and kill us. When you brought the Asian, their fight against affirmative action, I need you to know that that was something that has been in plan for years. It wasn't a grassroots effort; it was astroturf. Although it seemed like it was something that they just came up with on their own, there was a gentleman by the name of Ed Blum. He is a Russian Jew who has been fighting all his life to remove every black set aside created by our federal government for us. And so the Asian government, excuse me, the Asian organization, which was a newly formed Asian organization to work in alliance with Mr. Blum, went ahead and got this done. Now, I need you to know that Edward Blum is not an independent actor. These are one of the things that you have to insert the astroturfing definition to really be able to grasp this. We have a group of people who control a very powerful element in our government where they support both sides of the aisle. I call them Apple checks. It sounds just like um, the first of my name and what I'm sitting on. I'm packing big booty, so you can say A and you add the other part to it, okay? I call them Apple checks. You need to understand that Apple checks has been in a concerted effort with whiteness to economically predate upon Black people. And just like Love I Am said, it seems like it's for our disenfranchisement. No, it is for our disenfranchisement when they had made the decision to emancipate us, not free us. So I'm glad we all got that understood. They made the decision to emancipate us. They did not make the decision to free us. One, because not only are we chattel, two, we're currency, three, they're capital. She's absolutely right. There are work agreements, there are economic agreements that our country is able to make with international um, countries, international trade agreements that, hey, yes, if you send people over here, your people will be allowed to profit in this country. I'm not going to necessarily say certain sectors or certain industries, but just like your people will be able to prosper. How do they know their people will be able to prosper? Because the United States has a group of people for whom that their capital and their currency is based in, and that's Black Americans. So everyone is allowed to socially and economically harvest from our political status. So I kind of want you all to like bring these things in together, and this is just not a hypothesis. This is bared out by a lot of work. You can look it up. Everything I say, you can go back and research it on your own. This is the truth. So when I say we have to be careful about Black pathology, is the intent on blaming Black people for our political or economic failure. It is orchestrated and it is also legislated. Therefore, it is codified. We're legislated into poverty. And speaking on local politics, we know exactly how important that is. But do you realize that when you're looking at local politics In this day and age, what you're actually looking at is a microcosm of policy that has already been put in place, but it plays out in narrative, kind of like a farce. We're looking at a soap opera. Can I give you a quick example? So I live in Irving, Texas. We have a small Indian contingent here. When I say Indian, I'm talking about Indian with a dot, India, and they've been allowed to set up their own little shopping centers, their own little businesses, their own little schools. And guess what? Y'all gonna love this. A lot of their little people got Juneteenth scholarships. I'm gonna let that one go. And so you would think to yourself, well, goodness, Andrea, we ought to be able to fight these people. No. So our governor just made a deal with the country of India to supply more Indian IT workers in the United States. Now you're going to say, but what does this have to do with what you're saying? Well, we had another little Indian person who was running for office. He was shut out by, guess what, a Mexican. Okay, so I want you to really look at how this is playing out. Okay, so the Mexican was able to scoop him out. Let me tell you how he was able to scoop him out because the Mexican was in alliance with several people here in Texas that eventually went on to be in Trump's administration. Now, do you see what I'm talking about when I say astroturf politics? So now we're having to work backward as Black Americans. It's not only that we need to keep our eyes on local politics, we're going to have to do two things at the same time. The two most important things Black people are going to have to do politically is you're right, BJ 85LA, is get involved with local politics. But see, that's just not enough. We're going to have to continue to disaggregate. And by that, I mean politically. When we show up at those meetings, it can't just be that I'm showing up there. I have to show up with data, sweetheart, and a lot of it. And one of the things that I have to do when I show up there with data is how my current government is excluding Black Americans. So I know BJ is just saying, yeah, we need to be there. Oh, I wholeheartedly agree. But just being at these meetings is no longer enough. We're not showing up at these meetings with enough data to prove that we're being economically discriminated against. So I agree. Everything Love I Am is saying is true. Everything BJ 85 LA is saying is true. I need us to tie that in to a larger picture and why our politics is no longer effective because we're politicking from the 60s. We're politicking from the 70s. And as long as we continue to use terms like black and brown, POC, we're chasing the eight ball. As a matter of fact, we're chasing our own ethnocide. In this day and age, we're going to have to be able to articulate very clearly and very firmly the Black Americans' political status, no matter where we are. So if I were in a bumfuck Kansas and there were only three Black people there, I still could not align with the minorities in that group. You know why? Because those minorities have federal and international trade practices and agreements behind them, whereas Andrea only has a cotton field. And that is a political status, believe it or not. I can't align with other minorities. I can only align with my Black American political status. And on that, I'll land. Thank you, people.
Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and I've enjoyed this space and learned so much. I'm gonna piggyback off what Andy said right quick. That's true. That happened to my father, who volunteered for the Vietnam War late in the war. Volunteered in 1971, 72 when people was protesting it. When he gets home for the Vietnam War, he wanted to open a gas station, and with a perfect credit score, nobody would loan him the money. I went to high school with a refugee who was with the son of a refugee who was picked up by the United States Navy running away from South Vietnam. This refugee immigrant got a loan on a gas station that he used to sell beer to underage black children and still owns a gas station. So it's a bigger thing in play. I'm not trying to be defeatist or pessimistic, but Andy was right. We're looking at something bigger. How do we fight it? Like our brother Tariq says, we need to urge more of our young people to go to law school. And as a community, we need to fund it. We need to fund their legal education. Maybe what I'm thinking entertaining doing is creating a contract saying that for the community, we're going to fund you to go to 3 years of law school, and when you get out, you owe us 10 years of community interest. We need attorneys because this stuff is very. I went to law school. This stuff is very tricky. Well, so they will set up situations where it looks fair, but it's not really fair. It's already codified. It's not as simple as this. All of you are correct, but it's just not as simple. But this explaining how this works is a whole nother space. I enjoyed y'all. I got an early morning lecture, so I got to get out of here. But look for us tomorrow, same place, same time. I enjoyed y'all. Any last words, Wani?
No, good night. Have a
Good night,
nice
all.
night.
Peace out.